course. So here we go today with our understanding our style, swimsuit style, starting out with shape. Now, when over the last 12 years, I've had thousands of conversations with different women, and something that came up time and time again was when I'd ask them, where are you stuck? Why can't you find the swimsuit that's right for you? Many of them would say, I can't find my size. And I'd think long and hard about that. And it would come up time and time again. Not very many of them said, I can't find the right style. So size always seemed to drive it. Now, that's another conversation for another live. And size is driven through a whole host of things over the years. And, we're about embracing size at any size, right? But in understanding shape, you need to go back to, and for swimwear, you need to go back to your form and the form of the swimsuits. Because with swimwear, yes, size does matter, because ultimately on the ticket, it'll say size whatever, size 20, and you need to buy that. But shape is something that is not put on a label, right? So that's harder to find. And that's why you need to lean on me and the girls here at Sequins and Sam, because we can guide you. Now, more recently, after listening to those conversations and thinking, how can I help the girls understand better and make it easier for shopping online for swimwear, we came up recently with this fabulous new tool called the Shape and Size Calculator. Now, it's not there so that you can keep track of your measurements. It's not about that. But in order to understand shape, we do need to take some fundamental measurements. Now, what I wasn't surprised, but I was a bit disappointed in learning is most of the women I serve are in midlife, right? We're in our mid to late 40s up to our 70s, and we're into diving into life, right? That's what we want to do. But I also know that in midlife, our body shapes change. They're not the same shape in most instances that they were in our 20s. And in most of the women that I serve, the conversations around shape that we do have and about finding the right swimsuit is, I want to cover up my belly. I'm really belly conscious. And understanding, I'm looking for the words now in my mind, because that is a real issue for a lot of women I serve. And it's an issue because it happens to, I would say, 90% of us when we come through midlife, and as we approach midlife and in midlife, for a whole lot of reasons, hormonal reasons, lifestyle reasons, different, we've had kids, our bodies have stretched, all sorts of reasons. For some of us, it's chronic illness. But in menopause and midlife, we tend to put on weight around our bellies. Camouflage, that's right, Jane, that is the word. And because of that, when I was researching, wanting to put the shape and size calculator together, I was researching all the descriptions that are typically out there for describing shape. And I thought, this doesn't make a lot of sense even to me. And this is what I do day to day, right? So how do we make these shapes more applicable to midlife shapes? Because that's who I serve. I serve you as a woman in midlife. And so the images that they were using to describe different body shapes, most of the time they were illustrations like cartoons. And I thought, well, how the hell are women going to relate to that? You kind of can, but it doesn't make it personal, right? It's a step away from being able to relate to it. And then when they were putting photos of women who represented that body shape, in many of the instances, they just didn't. Like, they were showing girls, they were talking about having a rounder apple shape. And these girls, in some instances, I couldn't even see a fuller tummy on their bodies, in their bodies and on their shape. And I thought, this is just madness. So I reverted back to what I know. And the boys and I worked hard at changing the algorithms in the calculator and changing it a little bit so that it made sense for our midlife shapes. And that's where Jane comes in and the lovely girls in the Cosy Confidence crew, because they are those real body shapes, right? So Jane is a rounder body shape, and she, in the shape and size calculator, and I'll show you that shortly, she represents that shape. And other girls represent the 6 other shapes that I'll take you through today. And in having the Cosy Confidence girls put themselves out there, because they're not swimsuit models, right? They're swimsuit superheroes, but they're not swimsuit models. They don't do this, as their profession. And the other thing you need to know, listen in for this, is that most swimsuit models have an hourglass shape. And I can explain why a bit later on. But an hourglass shape is what you typically will see in most swimsuit photographs put out by labels. Now that's fine. I'm not dissing all of that. I'm just letting you know and be aware that a lot of the influencers you might follow, or the labels that are out there when they do their campaigns with professional models, they use hourglass shape models. And for most of us, we're not hourglass shape. So then you're left with the responsibility and the task of working out, well, how do I translate from an hourglass shape on that model to my body? And I'll keep using Jane as an example because the beautiful Jane's hanging in there with me today. If Jane looked at an hourglass shape, she would look at that and go, well, how do I think that particular swimsuit or that particular dress is going to work for me with my shape when I know I am not that shape? So it's not so much about size. For me, it is definitely about shape, because once you know your shape, you then, from a size point of view, the proportions are the same. The theory stays the same. And you can be a size 10 in a round shape, and you can be a size 20 in a round shape, but the principles still hold true. Now, you might need a little bit of extra support, but really, for your shape to suit the shape of your body and the features that are in a swimsuit and the style of a swimsuit, it is exactly the same, whether you're a 10 or a 20. So with that in mind, let's explore the 6 midlife shapes that I've come up with. Now, bear with me while I share my screen, because this is a little bit tricky. I've just got to go into here, share screen, Chrome tab. Don't you love how rightio, there they are. So let me know if you can see our beautiful girls. Excellent. So here are our 6 midlife shapes. We have diamonds, triangles, round, otherwise known as apples, rectangles, inverted triangles, and hourglasses. Now, the diamond shape and the triangle shape is probably, the diamond shape and the round shape are probably the 2 most popular shapes that we serve here at Sequins and Sand. And the diamonds and the triangles are related. And here you can see straight up, girls, that these women are everyday girls with those shapes. Now, a diamond shape is really a triangle shape with a fuller tummy, but the proportions of having a narrower top to hips still holds true. So a diamond and a triangle are very similar in that the width of their shoulders is narrower than the width of their hips. And when you put your measurements into the shape and size calculator, that will show you on the screen exactly how that comes about with the shape. And I'll explore that a little bit with you in a moment. But they are similar in their overall shape in that they have a narrower top to wider hips. And with the diamond girls like Alison and Jackie, they have a fuller tummy with it. Whereas you can see with Tracy and Maria, that's not necessarily the case. But those girls are wider around the hips. Now, something that's interesting is, so when you want to look for cossies that work well with your shape, that will feel good on, I believe you need to work with the features that will work with your shape to make it feel better on your body. So for the girls who are a triangle, for instance, many of those girls, because they have a narrower top to hips, many of those girls often don't have a fuller bust with it either. So the last thing you want to do is find a style that's got a really deep bust cup and get lost in all of that, right? And also with the wider hips, many of the girls will be hip conscious. So we try to keep the attention up. And a way to do that is bring all the detail up to the top. So with this one that Maria's got on, for example, she's got the lovely pink outline top and across just underneath her bust. So that brings all the attention up. And the triangle shape does that too. The triangle shape will bring the attention up. Then for Jackie and Alison, they are more tummy conscious. So the ruching around what Jackie's got on in the bandeau helps her with that. And for Alison, it's the 3 tiers of fabric that sit over. Now, I'm not going to go into a lot of detail just yet for all that, but there are a few principles as to why knowing your shape will help you to discover the style of swimsuit that works best to give you the support you need and will feel right on. Now, the other shape, our round shape, there's a beautiful Jane there. Yay, Jane. Jane with Felicity, or Flick, as she likes to be known as, and the lovely Tasha. Now, these girls have quite a fullness around their midsection, and for Flick and Jane, they have the fuller bust with it as well. Tasha, a little bit different, and to be honest, she could also be, she's borderline with inverted triangle because she's an ex-swimmer, so she's got the broader shoulders, but still a very prominent tummy in her shape feature, but she's not got, you know, the larger bust as Jane does. But in essence, the similar cossies that work to, when you focus on supporting a larger tummy, will work for both girls. We just need to know that if you've got a fuller bust with it, that you need to look for styles that are going to support your bust as well. Now, the other shape is rectangle. How do I get rid of that? 100% view actual size. Why don't I get rid of that? Full screen. Does that help? No. Bugger. So this one is actually rectangle. Now the lovely Evie and Liz are our rectangles, and Liz will go, not so sure, because Liz has a fuller tummy as well. But basically with our beautiful rectangles, these girls have a body shape that goes straight down like a column. And this is another body shape that a lot of models are, especially catwalk models, and whether they're a size 4 or a size 10, well, you probably won't see many on the fashion catwalks over a size 8, but these girls have a shape that is well proportioned like the hourglass, straight through like a column. So we can see here that there's quite a lot of different styles that these girls can wear. But if you're a little bit more tummy conscious like Liz is, then you would wear that ruching around the tummy. But also these girls can get away with just about anything really in terms of finding a swimsuit that will feel good on and work well with their shape. And for Evie, there's an example here. I've got this swimsuit here because shortly I'm going to go through rectangles in a bit more detail. The rectangle girls, because they're straight through, might want to bring out their personality by showing a bit more of a curve. You know, that might be something that they want to do to feel better in their cossies. And that's where you can see the black outline against the white there on that cossie gives the illusion of a curve. So there's all those sorts of tricks that go into the features of a cossie too. The other shape is the inverted triangle. Now, I've put it underneath the triangle because, hello, they are the flip. So the inverted triangle girls have a broader shoulders than they have hips, narrower hips, broader shoulders, and often will have a fuller bust with that. Many of these girls have been ex-swimmers, for example, but a lot of women with this shape, they find it trickier to fit top as well as hips, particularly if the hips are quite narrow. And it's really important with this shape that you find cossies that will give you that great bust support. So that is the inverted triangle shape. To be honest, that's probably the least common shape that we work with here at Sequins and Sand, but nonetheless, it's a common shape. And then last but not least, the hourglass. And the lovely Maz. Hello, Mazzy. You'll be watching, I know for sure, at some stage. Mazzy, again, has done a lot with us here, and she is the classic hourglass shape. So hourglasses have a well-defined waist, and the shoulders and hips are the same width. From a fashion point of view, from a mannequin styling point of view, hourglass is the shape that you'll see the most of. It's a well-proportioned shape, so it's easy to dress and make work well for all different kinds of, clothing and swimwear shapes. So, but the trick with an hourglass, and again, is that, if you're tummy conscious, go for the ruching. But hourglasses and rectangles in particular don't need all of that extra fuss around the middle. Something clean works quite well for them, but only if you become more tummy conscious that you'll reach for the ruching. But you can see in the one that Maz has got on there in the example, the black and white, all the attention, that crisscrossing actually helps to bring in and highlight her waist a lot more and bring the attention up, but definitely highlights her waist. And that there's no ruching in that style. It's straight through because she doesn't need it, right? Now, with shape, it is a proportion thing. There's some science behind all of this, that when we look at it from a visual point of view, and we do respond to how we look, absolutely we do, but it's also in our DNA, girls, that, from a mating point of view, the science lets us know or indicates that as humans, we like balance and proportion. So that's why an hourglass is quite often, the sought after shape, because it has that proportion. Top and bottom are in proportion. And that is something that our brains are wired to appreciate, is balance. So that's why you'll see things in threes for balance. Many art forms show balance in composition, because balance is what is most pleasing to our brains. And the same with the rectangle, girls. That's that, even though it's straight through, that is a balanced shape. So with triangles, narrower up top, wider at the bottom. To achieve the balance, you'd boost the top, make the top look wider, to balance out the wider hips. That's from a purely visual point of view. But I bet you'll find that when you get that balance right for you, that will also make you feel better. It's just inherently a lot of the time what happens. So there are 6 midlife shapes. There is a focus there. The diamond I introduced because that was where, a fuller tummy comes into that triangle shape. And hopefully by seeing all the beautiful girls from the crew there in the different togs that they're in, you can get an appreciation of real body shapes. And maybe, I'm hoping that you can see yourself in one of them, and it helps you to better understand your body shape and how it will look in different kinds of swimwear. Now, with that in mind,